Good morning, everybody. How we doing? Spectre here for another edition of Midnight Rider. On a different side of the clock here today, but hey, what the heck? I figured we'll give it a shot here. Wanted to try and get some information out to kind of round things out after day one of the Shampeachment that took place yesterday. And before they start up for the day here today under the big top, known as the circus in D.C. So today we're going to cover a few things of the fallout, the goings-on from yesterday, the House managers, Trump team giving their briefs yesterday, the vote, where does this all lead, etc. So stick around. We'll talk about that here on the other side. Warning. These social media platforms may be hazardous to your health. Censorship kills. Pain coming. This has been a PSA by Breaking Spectre. Alright, welcome back everybody. Like I said, I figured I'd try and get this out before the goings on here today up on Capitol Hill. And of course, it has been quite the circus already, based on what we saw yesterday in about 4 hours of the House managers and that giving their respective statements. And of course, the Trump team headed by Mr. Castor and Mr. Schoen yesterday in their testimony, followed by the vote. Like I said, we're going to get into that here. So let's just jump right into it. Zero Hedge had a pretty good wrap-up on the day. They tracked the headlines throughout the day yesterday. Here's everything you need to know as second Trump impeachment trial opens. That was the starting headline on the day. Watch live, second Trump impeachment trial kicks off in the Senate. To watch live, Trump impeachment team makes their case. Turley and Dershowitz were unimpressed. Followed by the headline that you now see, Senate votes Trump impeachment trial constitutional. 6 Republicans break ranks. So we're going to get into who the 6 are, and it mirrors pretty much what we had seen previously when Rand Paul had put this forth on the vote here just a week or so ago. So that being said, this was the last update on the day. Says the U.S. Senate on Tuesday voted 56-44 that it is constitutional to hold an impeachment trial against former President Donald Trump. As slighted as that is, it is what it is. They're going to continue with this blankety-blank show nonetheless. So lead Democratic impeachment manager Jamie Raskin played a video montage of Trump encouraging his followers to attend the January 6th Stop the Steal rally, followed by footage of mayhem, which, by the way, was greatly chopped up and edited. We'll give him credit for that. And brilliant acting, by the way, yesterday by Mr. Raskin. Yes, I do understand that perhaps he did lose his son, but was it attributed to this stuff? I think not. Perhaps maybe he has taken a page out of AOC's playbook in regards to some acting classes. Nonetheless, Raskin cited several conservative legal scholars who have said it's constitutional to impeach an official after they've left office, and that is a BS interpretation. He then listed examples of constitutional framers discussing the threshold for impeachment, suggesting that it's inconceivable that it wouldn't apply to actions committed during a president's last few days in office. Trump's counsel argued that Dems want to impeach Trump to prevent him from running again in 2024, and conceded that the Trump legal team changed their presentation on account that we thought that the House manager's presentation was well done. Castor then argued that Democrats got what they wanted when Trump was voted out of office. Shown then showed a video of Dems calling for Trump's impeachment beginning in 2017 before arguing that the House conducted a snap impeachment following the January 6th riot. He then argued that because Trump is a private citizen and cannot be removed from office, the trial is unconstitutional, with which 44 GOP senators agreed. And again, that mirrors kind of the vote in that we saw here just a week or so that was brought by Rand Paul. The 56-44 vote means that the trial will begin in earnest tomorrow, meaning here today in just a little bit again. All Dems and the following 6 Republicans voted to proceed: Senators Cassidy, Romney, Collins, Toomey, Murkowski, and Sass. There's your 6, folks. Jonathan Turley tweeted this out, says vote is 44-56 on the constitutional issue, virtually the same as the earlier vote. That means that 44 senators are now on record that the trial is unconstitutional. That would appear to make acquittal effectively certain given this threshold vote. So it begs the question, why bother going through all the pomp and circumstance and procedures of all this if they know that this thing isn't going to fly? Well, quite honestly, it's a matter of just getting it all on the record. Their true vitriol, their hatred, their Trump derangement syndrome, which was brought up yesterday and even in the 78-page or 75-page rebuttal that Trump had, and I talked about here on the previous episode. So the update as of about 4 p.m. yesterday, Trump attorney Bruce Castor Jr. began Trump's legal defense by condemning those responsible for the violence at the Capitol. And, of course, not only has he said that, Trump has said that, and, of course, it's no different than what happened during the election cycle. Do you condemn people like Duke and things of that nature? It's the same thing. It's the same playbook. Total projection. You will never hear anybody representing former President Trump say anything at all other than what happened on January 6th in the storming and the breaching of the Capitol should be denounced in the most vigorous terms, he said, before arguing that it's unconstitutional for the Senate to hold a trial to convict a former president, and suggesting that Dems are really impeaching Trump to bar him from running in the future. And that's exactly right, because obviously, as everybody can tell, we now have Joe sitting in office, right? So how can this possibly stand? So we're going to let some of these play through. This week had this to say: we are really here because a majority in the House of Representatives does not want to face Donald Trump as a political rival in the future, Trump impeachment lawyer Bruce Castor argues.
But why are the House managers afraid? And why is the majority of the House of Representatives afraid of the American people? I mean, let's understand why we are really here. We are really here because the majority in the House of Representatives does not want to face Donald Trump as a political rival in the future. That's the real reason we're here. And that's why they have to get over the jurisdictional hurdle, which they can't get over. But that's why they have to get over that in order to get to the part of the Constitution that allows removal. So that's nobody says it that plainly, but unfortunately I have a way of speaking that way. But why are the...
So he's exactly right. They had to jump through hoops in order to get to the hurdles and whatnot. Why are they really here? Well, perhaps some of us may actually recall this. Haven't you figured it out yet? It's not about Trump's corruption or incitement, perhaps maybe that's what we replace that with in this particular meme. It's about making sure you don't find out about their corruption. How many times have we seen that meme pop up over the last several years? This is what it's really about. They do not want to face the American populace who know the shenanigans and BS that have taken place. So I digress briefly. Come back to this. As constitutional attorney Jonathan Turley, an impeachment witness during Trump's first Senate trial, appears largely unimpressed, though agreed with Castor making a Rule 23 argument. And of course we did hear Raskin highlight Turley and some of his arguments in the past. Turley, if you've listened to anything that I've put forward, does tend to play it right down the line. He doesn't tend to take sides. So it's conceivable that, yes, there are some things that Raskin and company can cherry pick out of his sightings and documents and things of that nature that he's put forward over the years. Turley, Castor is now making a Rule 23 argument on indivisibility of the article to highlight the 14th Amendment claim. I was also critical of that reliance. And there's his piece in USA Today. Says the article was poorly crafted, and this was one of the examples. What do impeachment and the Philadelphia Eagles have in common? They're tanking. That was the article that Turley penned. Says I am surprised by the long discussion of the Senate before getting to such concrete arguments. There is also no focus on the retroactive trial issue as a foreshadowing of the case for dismissal. Turley then suggested Trump's legal team get to the heart of the constitutional question. Again, highlighting here, says more heat than light from the defense so far. The team needs to focus on the constitutional claims and history. David Schoen is tearing into the Democrats when the Senate needs argument on the constitutional issues. And Schoen did actually get to that after having listened to it yesterday. Castor seemed to be a little bit more soft in that regard. I think he kind of laid it out and left it for Schoen to do. And to me, it just kind of seemed like that he pretty well read the brief in that Trump and company had put forward the day before, which I had covered here. So that being said, if you need to brush up on that, you can go back on the channel and listen to that. The defense has eaten roughly half of its time without landing a glove on the constitutional questions. Schoen was said to be the one who would present an erudite analysis of the constitutional issue. Attorney Alan Dershowitz, a member of the Trump's first impeachment defense team, is similarly unimpressed, telling Newsmax, I have no idea what he is doing, referring to Castor. And so, yeah, obviously, again, it was a bit soft, so we'll have to see how this plays out here today. We also have Van der Veen and that who is supposed to be part of that. We'll see if they come out with all systems go here today or not. There is no argument. I have no idea what he is doing, Dershowitz said on Trump's defense lawyer, Bruce Castor, talking nice to U.S. senators. We'll let this briefly play through.
What are you making of Bruce Castor's argument so far? Where is he heading with this?
There is no argument. I have no idea what he's doing. I have no idea why he's saying what he's saying. You know, he's introducing himself. I'm a nice guy. I like my senators. I know my senators. Senators are great people. Come on. The American people are entitled to an argument, a constitutional argument. I suspect will be forthcoming from David Schoen. But this, just after all kinds of very strong presentations on the part of the House managers with the videotapes and the emotional speech by Congressman Raskin, my former student, you get up there and you respond. We know that hard cases make bad law. I probably would have started with that. This is a hard case. This is an emotional case. He did say, and I think very appropriately, that everybody wants to take revenge when they see a horrible event that took place at the Capitol, but then he went off. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll bring it home, but right now, it does not appear to.
So we'll cut it short there, but nonetheless, I think you get the idea. If any of you guys happened to watch the show yesterday, I would agree that he did come across a bit soft, perhaps a little bit too soft in regards to calling senators patriots and everything else, that they all believe in the Constitution and everything else. No, not necessarily. I think they prefer to crap all over it and use it only for their convenience. The 347 update yesterday says House Dems lead impeachment manager, Rep. Jamie Raskin, began the day playing a clip of Trump encouraging his supporters to show up at the Capitol, leaving out the part where Trump told them to conduct themselves patriotically and peacefully. Raskin then showed a montage of the storming, recorded at least in part by a BLM activist who participated in the insurrection. So we'll let a little bit of this play through.
We will stop the steal. Today I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election, and we won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Yeah! Let's take the Capitol. Take the Capitol. Take the Capitol. We are going to the Capitol. We're
bunch of folks. They came in duffel bags. Where the hell did they come from?
Madam Speaker, the Vice President and the United States Senate.
All right, we'll cut that short. It does go on for a little bit. In case you missed it yesterday, I'll drop the link out there to where you can actually find that. RSBN carried the broadcast yesterday from the Senate proceedings, as well as the Senate website as well. Let me do that right quick, because this is where you'll be able to actually find it here today as well. So there you go. That's where you can find the proceedings in that for today and the rest of the week, however long this goes on. It says at one point Raskin invoked his dead son, who committed suicide days before the insurrection. Greg Miller highlights, says Raskin's son committed suicide days before the Capitol siege and left behind a note. Please forgive me. My illness won today. Please look after each other, the animals, and the global poor. For me, all my love, Tommy. And here we have this piece.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Senate. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Raskin. It's my honor to represent the people of Maryland's 8th Congressional District in the House and also to serve as the lead House manager. And, Mr. President, we will indeed reserve time for rebuttal. Thank you. Because I've been a professor of constitutional law for 3 decades, I know there are a lot of people who are dreading endless lectures about the Federalist Papers here. Please breathe easy, okay? I remember well W.H. Auden's line that a professor is someone who speaks while other people are sleeping. You will not be hearing extended lectures from me, because our case is based on cold, hard facts. It's all about the facts. President Trump has sent his lawyers here today to try to stop the Senate from hearing the facts of this case. They want to call the trial over before any evidence is even introduced. Their argument is that if you commit an impeachable offense in your last few weeks in office, you do it with constitutional impunity. You get away with it. In other words, conduct that would be a high crime and misdemeanor in your first year as president, and your second year as president, and your third year as president, and for the vast majority of your fourth year as president, you can suddenly do in your last few weeks in office without facing any constitutional accountability at all.
All right, that's a good place to stop it. Nonetheless, Raskin goes on his little tirade for a little while there. We get into Raskin then asks if inciting the riot isn't an impeachable offense. Nothing is, as Trump started a violent insurrection. And I guess we're just supposed to overlook all the 70-some riots and that throughout the country last year. And by the way, you know, the fact that we had people like Mad Maxine and that out there inciting. We had people like Nancy Pelosi, Rashida Tlaib, and everybody else. You know, we showed the cut-up the night before on the broadcast of all of their incitements. So, you know, it's just a matter of interpretation. You know, to them, it's how we interpret your words, not how the person speaking it meant it. And, oh, by the way, if you interpret what we said, well, that's not what we meant. Notice the double standard? Exactly. Next, Rep. Joe Neguse out of Colorado argued why the impeachment was constitutional, saying that the chamber was found on multiple occasions that a person can be tried after leaving office. Neguse then argued that if Trump is vindicated, officials could commit heinous acts and then just resign before an impeachment. Well, sure. And then, of course, we also had the Trump defense site. This is, pre-Revolutionary War type stuff you're going back to here. And last I checked, we aren't under a king and a parliament here. So if that's the route you want to go, then you guys might want to rethink your plan. CBS Evening News had this. Rep. Joe Neguse on the constitutionality of former President Trump's second Senate impeachment trial. We'll let this play through briefly.
You can try, convict, and disqualify a former president. And that makes sense because the text of the Constitution makes clear there is no January exception to the impeachment power. That presidents can't commit grave offenses in their final days and escape any congressional response. That's not how our Constitution works. You can try, convict.
Yeah, and I love how they just conveniently use the Constitution when it's convenient for them, but then shred it for things like voting and things of that nature. I guess the Constitution doesn't necessarily matter then, now does it? Next, Rep. Cicilline argued that the impeachment protects our constitutional system and safeguards democracy, suggesting that things could have gotten far worse during the riot, as participants could have killed all of them. Oh, sure. So let's let this play through.
This was a disaster of historic proportion. It was also an unforgivable betrayal of the oath of office of President Trump, the oath he swore, an oath that he sullied and dishonored to advance his own personal interests. And make no mistake about it, as you think about that day, things could have been much worse. As one senator said, they could have killed all of us.
Yeah, sir, that's terrible. Hey, by the way, aren't senators and reps and that also sworn to an oath when they swear into office, by chance? Just asking. Former President Trump's second impeachment trial begins on Tuesday, is expected to begin at 1. Up to 4 hours will be equally divided between the House impeachment managers and Trump's legal team to present arguments regarding the constitutionality of the trial. And of course, yes, throughout the week here, Senate will hold a simple majority vote, which they did. We got to 44 to 56. Jurisdiction to try Trump. If a yes, the trial will proceed on Wednesday, where House managers and Trump's defense will each have 16 hours over 2 days to make their arguments, which is going to be very, very interesting because right now it's all based on conjecture. We've already gone through the actual proceedings and that they have put forth, the sole article. And of course, if all they're going to rely upon is just a cut-up and mischaracterization of events and that based on some stuff from the Mockingbird media, it's going to have a pretty tough leg to stand on. I believe, at least, anyway. So that leads me to this. Turley had penned an article again yesterday, Modus or Media Operandi. CNN run statement of anonymous senior aide who said Trump loved watching the riot. And this is complete garbage at the onset, but we highlight it anyway. It says recently discussed how House managers are claiming the right to use Trump's failure to testify at his trial as proof of guilt, despite the fact that presidents historically have not given such testimony at Senate trials. Now, the Clown News Network has released, on the day before the start of the arguments, an account from an unnamed former senior aide that Trump was watching the riot in the Capitol unfold and, quote, loving watching the Capitol mob, end quote. Mind you, again, this is from the Clown News, so what do you expect? The same pattern emerged in the first Trump trial. It is being described as the smoking gun evidence needed to secure conviction. The story highlights the decision of the House not to call witnesses before or after its snap impeachment. The question is why the House would use implication, innuendo, and inference when it could have used direct evidence to seek the conviction of Donald Trump. So I'll pause right there and highlight that very thing. Why would they use implication, innuendo, and inference if what we just heard Mr. Raskin say in the piece I just played there, that this is solely based on facts? Well, those three things right there do not imply facts. They imply conjecture, right? So where are the facts at the end of the day? Why did they not call hearings and get video evidence of so many thousands of folks who were there? Would we perhaps find things a little bit too inconvenient truth? Perhaps. The Clown News story highlights what has not occurred in the second trial of Donald Trump. No prosecutor would let weeks go by without seeking to lock in the testimony of witnesses who could offer direct evidence of the statements and actions of Trump during this period. The media has had no difficulty in locating these witnesses, and about a dozen names are already known. We know them because many of them have already spoken publicly, an indication that they could have been easily called to appear before House committees without subpoenas, or would not contest subpoenas. I have no problem accepting that Trump relished scenes of violent protest, but I would like that evidence come in the form of testimony, not media reports. It is the type of account that can shed light on Trump's state of mind, but the House seems entirely content to be a mere pedestrian watching the media interview key witnesses. Why do you suppose that is? Is it just because that the media is nothing more than the PR arm of the Dems at this point? But of course. The result is a trial that seems circumstantial by design. There is, of course, ample evidence of what occurred. No credible litigator leaves a record circumstantial if they can use direct evidence. Again, didn't Raskin say, we have facts and evidence? Well, where is it? Produce it. Much of this evidence and many of these witnesses are known to the House, yet it has chosen largely to put on a circumstantial case. The question is whether the House will highlight this failure by referencing the CNN story, relying on media reports rather than sworn testimony. It literally has no record in the House of an impeachment hearing, an impeachment investigation, or a formal response from the president. So, it will either rely on videos of the rioters, or it will seek to reference named and unnamed witnesses presented in the media, rather hearings. The disconnect will only magnify prudential concerns raised by senators and commentators, including myself. There is also a pattern to this belated release. We saw the same thing unfold before the first Trump trial. Just about a year ago, I might remind folks, the House refused to subpoena or call witnesses before the House Judiciary Committee. The media then released stories just before the trial from some of the very same individuals who were not called to testify. Some individuals would clearly have testified, while others said that they just wanted subpoenas. Later, witnesses like former National Security Advisor John Bolton accused the House of malpractice in its flimsy prosecution of the impeachment. Now, we have the same late-minute gotcha stories after weeks of inaction from the House. This may be the bias of a criminal defense attorney, but I prefer evidence of modus operandi to media operandi at impeachment trials. So again, folks, at the end of the day, what is this really about? It's a circus. It's a show trial at the end of the day. It has nothing to do with removing the POTUS, or they don't even care whatsoever about the constitutionality. It's about putting on a good show. And what do you think is going to happen when this thing goes all the way through? Do you think they'll use cut-ups of this to show and primp their voter base and that who are ignorant of everything going on and do like what old Nancy called the wrap-up smear? Perhaps. Unless, of course, we see things play out perhaps a little bit differently here in the next coming days. That being said, more along those lines, Gateway Pundit had this to say: another disgusting lie. Democrat Raskin shows slide claiming 7 people lost their lives in January 6th Capitol siege. They just can't help it. Lead impeachment manager Jamie Raskin and Dems on Tuesday ran a video of the peaceful protests, rioting, and violence on January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol. And they lied. The video deceptively edited President Trump's words to his millions of supporters at the ellipse by the White House. What else would we expect from a Democrat? They're liars by nature. Raskin played a deceptively edited video of Trump, purposefully omitted the part where Trump specifically told his supporters to, quote, peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard. How many times have we seen this play out? How many times over the last 4 years? Did we not see this during the Ukrainian phone call with Zelensky? Did we not see this play out again with the folks down in Georgia, the Secretary of State, with Raffensperger? Same thing. Perfect phone call, right? Same doggone thing. They know no better. It is their trademark playbook. Then, at the end of the video, Raskin and Democrats claimed 7 people lost their lives by their experiences that day. This is another disgusting lie. The Washington, D.C. police identified the 4 Americans killed during the chaos at the U.S. Capitol. Ashley Babbitt, 35 years old, Huntington, Maryland. Benjamin Phillips, 50 years old, Ringtown, Pennsylvania. Kevin Greason, 55 years old, Athens, Alabama. Roseanne Boylan, 34 years old, Kennesaw, Georgia. Police officer Brian Sicknick died after the rioting, likely from blood clot and stroke. 2 other Capitol Police officers committed suicide later that month. To blame their suicides on the Capitol riots is completely outrageous and disingenuous. And of course, even this one. Sicknick, we saw in the last week or so, right? The claim was that he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher by a rioter. And that was not the case, now was it? They had to retract that statement. So again, they lied right off the bat. Dems are relying on lies to impeach private citizen Donald Trump. They have to lie to get the former president, period. And so that leads to the last bit out of the Hill. Senate votes, trial constitutional. 6 Republicans vote yes. Just to kind of recap things here, the Senate rejected an attempt on Tuesday to derail former President Trump's impeachment trial by getting it declared unconstitutional. There we see the 56-44. Here we see, says only Senator Bill Cassidy, who had previously supported an effort by Senator Rand Paul that would have declared the trial unconstitutional, flipped and said on Tuesday that he believes it is constitutional. So apparently he flipped. That being said, Senator Roy Blunt, a member of the GOP leadership who voted to say it was unconstitutional, predicted that it was a sign of the trial ending in Trump's acquittal. I would think the underlying view of what impeachment is all about would be the determining factor at the end, Blunt said. Asked if he expected the vote would be similar to the question on acquittal, he added, I do. Even after an effective video and presentation from the Dem impeachment managers that received good reviews from Republicans, well, kudos to that, good job with the cut-up there, nice videography, the majority of GOP senators voted that the trial was unconstitutional. The presentation from Trump's attorneys, in particular Bruce Castor, drew broad criticism from Senate Republicans who felt that it missed the mark and was at times hard to follow. Cassidy panned the presentation from Trump's team, contrasting it with the House impeachment managers he believes were more effective. So now it's about who's most effective and who's got the best videography, apparently, not about the facts that Mr. Raskin brought forward in the clip, and that's highlighted in the Zero Hedge article there. Says I said I'd be an impartial juror. Anyone listening to those arguments, the House managers were focused. They were organized. They relied upon both precedent, the Constitution, and legal scholars. They made a compelling reason. President Trump's team was disorganized, Cassidy said. He added that, as an impartial juror, I'm going to vote for the side that did the good job. What? GOP Senators Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, and Pat Toomey had previously voted to say the trial was constitutional and voted the same way on Tuesday. So, folks, there you have it. Those are the guys who, as of yesterday, and perhaps even dating back to Rand Paul's vote, we know who now to primary and censor. That being done already. I thought they did a good job in outlining the constitutional arguments of both sides. I continue to be persuaded by the weight of the scholarly analysis, which says it's constitutional to carry out a trial after someone's left office, according to Ole Mittens. Collins said she was perplexed by Castor. She added that the signaling out by Trump's team of Toomey and Sasse, who voted last month to say they thought the trial was constitutional, was inappropriate. House impeachment managers and Trump's team spent hours debating if the trial was constitutional ahead of Tuesday's vote. That's a shift from last month's vote when Republicans appeared caught off guard that Paul was forcing the issue. But senators say the results of the vote was largely already settled after senators had to make a decision last month. I think it played out pretty much as expected. The result of this trial is preordained. President Trump will be acquitted, Cruz said, while calling Rep. Jamie Raskin, the lead House manager, Impressive. Lindsey Graham added that, I mean, nobody's mind was changed one way or the other. Maybe I don't know, maybe Cassidy's mind was, he said. So, there you have it. And of course, like I said, if you wish to follow along the proceedings, I'm not sure if RSBN is actually going to carry that again today. I presume they will. You can find that here today, or yesterday's day one, 4 hours, 12 minutes worth of it. Nonetheless, one other thing that I'll highlight here is that as I took a few notes and that through yesterday, I already played the bit that Castor was talking about the jurisdictional hurdle, whether or not the Senate even has jurisdiction to go after somebody that is now on the outside. But the other thing that I thought was rather interesting was when Schoen took the helm there for a little while on the back hour of the 4 hours, talking about Federalist 65, which I have up here. Federalist 65 highlights this: the Federalist Papers, the powers of the Senate continued. This was penned by Hamilton on March 7th, 1788, and probably one of the key things I think that was highlighted out of this was this. What it may be asked is the true spirit of the institution itself. Is it not designed as a method of national inquest into the conduct of public men? If this be the design of it, who can so properly be the inquisitors for the nation as the representatives of the nation themselves? Flash forward, we get into this as where else than in the Senate could have been found a tribunal sufficiently dignified or sufficiently independent. What other body would be likely to feel confidence enough in its own situation to preserve, unawed, and unfluenced the necessary impartiality between an individual accused and the representatives of the people, his accusers? Could the Supreme Court have been relied upon as answering this description? It is much to be doubted whether the members of that tribunal would at all times be endowed with so eminent a portion of fortitude as would be called for in the execution of so difficult a task, and it is still more to be doubted whether they would possess the degree of credit and authority which might, on certain occasions, be indispensable towards reconciling the people to a decision that should happen to clash with an accusation brought by their immediate representatives. So that's talking about the trial, as it were, of the Senate in impeachment proceedings. So he highlighted Federalist 65, also brought up Matthews versus Eldridge by the Supreme Court as well. I don't have anything more really to say about that here, other than they did go and try and cite some case law, and that has already been brought forth. But nonetheless, here, this is where we stand. Of course, this is going to pick up here in just a little bit. We're going to, probably about 30 minutes out, I think, is when the proceedings begin yet again. And of course, like I said, you can follow along right here on the Senate.gov site. I'll drop the link one more time. You guys can check that out here today if by chance RSBN does not actually broadcast that out. So let me put that out there one more time if you wish to follow the big top. There we go. So that is what we've got in store here for today. Just a quick little recap, as it were, for the goings on, where things are going to head. Don't know where this may reside, where this ultimately will go at the end of the day. I sincerely doubt that we'll see enough GOP flip and actually prosecute, as it were. I do believe that at the end of the day, he will probably be acquitted, and their attempt to prevent Trump from being able to run for office again will succeed. So stay tuned. All right, well, that is going to do it for this broadcast. Just like I said, wanted to bring a quick update to the goings-on. Do tune in here after a little while this afternoon on 5x5. We'll be there at 3 p.m. kicking off. And, of course, we'll see you back here then. Hopefully cover some other news outside of the impeachment proceedings, but we may touch upon it. So stick around. We'll see you back then. Take care. God bless, everybody.